Samuel O'Coffer was forced to his knees as the iron gate closed behind him with a cold, final sound. The document landed at his feet. First, a marriage agreement, already stamped and signed. Then his small bag was thrown after it, bursting open on the cracked concrete. Helena O'Coffer did not raise her voice. She didn't need to. The message was clear. Marry the woman or walk away with nothing. Across the compound, neighbors turned their eyes away. One word passed quietly from mouth to mouth. Madwoman. At the edge of the street, a dark car sat waiting. Inside, a woman sat perfectly still, her face unreadable. When Samuel looked up, their eyes met for a brief, unsettling second. She did not look away. She did not blink. No one questioned why a young man was being traded like a piece of property. No one asked who the woman really was. But this moment would change every single life connected to that gate forever. Before we continue, tell us where you are watching from in your local time. If stories about injustice turning into justice speak to you, hit subscribe and stay with us. Samuel O'Coffer learned silence long before he learned how to fight. It started the morning after his father died. David O'Coffer had been buried under a sky too bright for grief, the kind of day that felt like the world did not care about your pain. Samuel stood beside the grave with his hands folded so tightly that his fingers went numb. He listened as people spoke about his father's kindness, his honesty, his quiet strength, the way he worked before sunrise and never complained. They said David was a good man. They said he gave too much. They said God had called him home early. What no one said, what no one was willing to say out loud, was what would happen to the son he left behind. Helena O'Coffer cried the loudest at that funeral. She threw herself against the coffin, calling out David's name, collapsing so dramatically that two men had to hold her up. Neighbors whispered about her deep love, about how strong she would need to be now, raising a family alone. Samuel stood 2 steps behind her, already invisible, already sensing that something in the air had shifted. Grief has a weight, he thought, and this kind feels like the beginning of something worse. By the time the mourners had eaten and gone home, Helena's tears had dried completely. Within 2 weeks, the house changed. Helena began locking doors that had never been locked before. Cabinets, drawers, rooms. Samuel would reach for something he had used 100 times before and find it sealed shut. Conversations stopped when he walked into a room. His father's study, once warm with books and the smell of old wood, was locked tight. When Samuel asked about it, Helena smiled, a thin, controlled smile. Your father trusted me to handle his affairs. You are too young to understand these things. Samuel was 23 years old. He understood more than Helena believed. He understood when the lawyer arrived and Helena spoke for the family. He understood when papers were signed and his name was not on any of them. He understood when the small monthly allowance his father had set aside for him quietly disappeared and he was told to earn his place in the house by working. Slowly, without noise, Samuel became a guest in the home where he had grown up. He woke before dawn to do chores. He cooked meals he was not always permitted to eat at the family table. He repaired things, cleaned things, carried things. Helena found new reasons to correct him every single day.
The floor was not clean enough. The water was not hot enough. His tone was not respectful enough. Every correction carried the same hidden message underneath it. You are here because I allow it. At night, Samuel lay on his mattress staring at the ceiling, listening to the house breathe. Sometimes he imagined his father sitting beside him, asking him why he looked so tired. Sometimes he imagined simply walking out, walking until the city swallowed him whole and no one could find him. But then there was his younger sister, Amara. Amara Okafor was only 9 years old when their father died. She still slept with a small lamp on. She still believed that adults were supposed to protect children. Helena treated Amara beautifully in public, buying her dresses, braiding her hair, telling everyone that Amara was David's true legacy. In private, she used Amara like a leash. "Don't upset me," Helena would say casually, stirring her tea. "You wouldn't want something to happen to Amara's school placement, would you?" Samuel swallowed his anger every single time. He learned to bend without breaking. Samuel had dreams, quiet ones, the kind he kept to himself. He had studied architecture for 2 years before his father died and the money ran out. He loved the way buildings told stories, the way a well-designed space could make a person feel safe, seen, respected. He had notebooks full of drawings, designs for houses and communities that never had good ones, schools with proper ventilation, clinics with natural light. Helena found those notebooks one afternoon. She flipped through them slowly. Then she dropped them on the floor. "Dreams don't pay debts," she said. "Learn something useful." Samuel picked the notebooks up without a word. He began taking small.
Helena Okafor did not shout when she revealed the full truth to Samuel. She never shouted. Power, Samuel had learned, spoke most clearly in calm voices. They sat across from each other at the dining table, a table Samuel was rarely invited to use anymore. Helena placed a slim folder between them and nudged it forward. "Open it," she said. Samuel hesitated. Then he did as he was told. Inside were documents he struggled to fully understand, numbers, loan agreements, debt figures with red circles around deadlines, names he did not recognize, signatures he did not know. Helena leaned back and crossed her arms. "Your father left more problems behind than you were told about," she said. Samuel's stomach tightened. "My father paid his debts." "The ones you knew about." She explained it in pieces. There had been a business investment, a shortfall, then interest, then more pressure. The kind of pressure that came with quiet threats and men who did not accept delay. They want full repayment, soon. Then sell something, the land, the car. Helena's eyes hardened. Those are not options. "Why not?" "Because they are mine," she replied. The room went completely silent. Something broke inside Samuel. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with the slow, dull ache of a realization arriving too late. Everything his father had worked for had already been signed over, already claimed. Helena leaned forward slightly. "There is a solution." Samuel looked at her slowly. "You will marry Zara Mensah." The name landed in the room like something dropped from a great height. Unfamiliar, cold, final. "No," Samuel said immediately. "I will not." Helena sighed, the patient, tired sigh of someone dealing with a stubborn child. "You do not have a choice in this." Samuel stood. "I will not marry a stranger to fix your mistakes." She is not a stranger to the people who matter, Helena replied, without raising her voice. Samuel shook his head. He had heard about Zara Mensa. Everyone had. The whispers moved faster than truth in their part of the city. Zara Mensa, the woman who talked to herself in the street, the woman who snapped at people without warning, the woman who had been seen laughing alone at night. Some people said she had been dangerous once. Others said she had lost her mind after something terrible happened to her. People say she is not well. They say she is dangerous. Helena's eyes flickered. Something that looked almost like satisfaction moved through them. Exactly, she said. Samuel felt cold. You are using me, he said. I am saving this family, and you are part of this family when it suits you to remember that. Samuel laughed once, a sharp, hollow sound. Only when it is convenient. Helena rose from her chair. You will do this, Samuel, or you will leave, tonight. Then I will leave. Helena paused. For the first time that afternoon, she stopped. Her mouth opened slightly. Then she spoke softly. And Amara? Samuel froze. Helena walked slowly around the table and stopped just behind his chair. Her voice stayed smooth. Her school fees are due in 3 weeks. Her placement depends on consistent, on-time payment. It would be a great shame if there were delays. Don't do this, Samuel's voice dropped. She is a child. So were you. And look at how well you turned out. Samuel turned to face her. You are cruel. Helena's controlled smile returned. I am practical. She placed a second document on the table, a marriage arrangement, already written, already agreed to by someone other than Samuel, a date already chosen. You will meet her this evening. Be respectful, be quiet, do not embarrass me. Samuel stared at the paper. His hands trembled slightly. The word husband on that page felt like it belonged to someone else's life, some other man in some other story. That evening, Samuel packed a small bag, not because he was leaving, he knew he was not, but because he needed something to hold, something small that was still his. Helena watched from the doorway. Do not embarrass me, she repeated. Samuel did not answer. They drove out of the neighborhood he had grown up in, past streets he recognized, past a market where he used to buy breakfast with his father on Saturday mornings, and then into areas he had never been before. The buildings thinned. The streetlights became farther apart. The air felt different. The second time Samuel saw Zara Mensa, it was not meant to be a meeting. It was meant to be an inspection. Helena had arranged it as part of the preparation, her word, for the marriage. Samuel was brought to the compound again, this time in the early afternoon. 2 different men waited near the gate. They spoke to Helena in lowered voices, glancing at Samuel the way people glance at furniture being moved into a room. Zara was sitting in the courtyard when Samuel arrived. She was reading. Not a newspaper, not a phone screen, a thick book with a worn spine and pencil marks in the margins. She did not look up when the gate opened. She turned a page slowly, made a small mark with her pencil, and then, only then, raised her eyes. She looked at Samuel for a moment, then at Helena, then back to the page. You are early, she said. Helena stiffened. We are on time. I know, Zara replied. She closed the book and set it carefully on the small table beside her chair. You are on time. I said early. One of the men shifted uncomfortably. Helena pressed forward, beginning her list of arrangements, the date, the documentation, the ceremony, what Samuel would be and would not be permitted to say.
Samuel stood slightly behind her, watching Zara. Zara listened to all of it with the particular patience of someone who is not actually listening at all, but recording. Her eyes moved slowly across Helena's face as Helena spoke, not with emotion, with measurement, like a person documenting the shape of something that will need to be dealt with later. Once, during Helena's presentation, Zara's eyes moved to Samuel. She held his gaze for exactly 2 seconds. In those 2 seconds, Samuel had the strange and unsettling feeling that she was trying to tell him something. Not with words, with the particular stillness of a person who knows more than they are permitted to say. Then she looked back at Helena. "I have one question," Zara said. Helena paused. "Yes?" "Does he know what is actually happening?" The air in the courtyard changed. Helena's smile did not move. "He understands the arrangement." Zara's eyes returned to Samuel. "That is not what I asked." Silence. Helena placed her hand on Samuel's arm and squeezed firmly, the kind of grip that was not affection. "We will see you next week." As they walked back to the car, Samuel glanced over his shoulder once more. Zara had picked her book back up, but she was not reading. She was watching him go, and on her face, for the briefest second, was not confusion, not anger, not madness. It was grief.
The marriage happened on a Tuesday morning in the small office of a registrar who seemed bored by the whole thing. No celebration, no flowers, no family members offering prayers or advice. Helena sat in a plastic chair near the window, watching. Samuel stood where he was told to stand. Zara stood beside him. They did not look at each other during the ceremony. The registrar read the words in a flat, efficient voice. Samuel responded when required. Zara responded when required. When it was done, the registrar stamped the document and pushed it across the desk. "Congratulations," he said, in a tone that suggested nothing was being celebrated. Helena collected the papers, checked them, and placed them in her bag with the efficiency of someone completing a transaction. She stood, straightened her jacket, and nodded once at both of them. "I will be in touch about the rest of the arrangements," she said. Then she left. Samuel and Zara stood alone in the small office for a moment after the door closed. The registrar had already turned back to his other papers. A fan turned slowly overhead. Samuel looked at Zara. She was looking at the stamped document on the desk. "You did not have to do this," he said quietly. Zara picked up the document, folded it once, and placed it in the pocket of her jacket. "Neither did you," she replied. They walked separately. Samuel was taken to a room in the compound where Zara apparently lived, a compound that, upon closer inspection, was larger than it first appeared. More rooms than the front courtyard suggested. A second building behind the first, a covered area with several locked doors. He was given a small, clean room, a bed, a window overlooking the back of the compound, a key. He sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, holding the key in his hand. Through the thin wall, he could hear nothing. No crying, no yelling, no chaos, just silence, and somewhere further away, the sound of typing. Fast, precise typing. He did not know what to make of it. In the days that followed, Samuel learned several things about Zara Mensah. She woke before dawn. Every day, without exception, she was already awake when the first light came through the windows. He would hear her in the kitchen, the the quiet, controlled movements of someone who had made coffee alone for a very long time. She read constantly. There were books in almost every room, not decoratively arranged, but actually used. Cracked spines, pages folded, notes written in the margins in a small, dense handwriting. She did not talk to herself. Samuel listened carefully over the first 3 days for any of the behavior Helena and the neighbors had described. There was none. She was not wild. She was not dangerous. She was not out of touch with reality. She was, Samuel slowly realized, being deliberately misrepresented. The question was, by whom and why? On the 4th day, something happened that changed the direction of everything. Samuel had been sitting in the small yard behind the compound, looking through one of his old architecture notebooks, one he had managed to keep hidden from Helena. He was sketching, almost without thinking, the way a person might hum a song to stay calm. Zara appeared in the doorway of the back building. She looked at the notebook, then at him. "What are you drawing?" she asked. He turned the notebook toward her slightly. "A community health center, something with proper ventilation and natural light, for a neighborhood like this one where there is none." Zara came closer. She looked at the drawing properly. Her eyes moved across it slowly, the same way they had moved across Helena's face during her presentation, not casually, but with attention. "You are an architect," she said. "I was studying to be one before my father died and the money ran out." Zara was quiet for a moment. Then she sat down, not beside him, but on the opposite bench, keeping a careful and respectful distance. "Why did you agree to this marriage?" Samuel looked at her directly. "My sister." Zara nodded, as if this confirmed something she had already suspected. "Helena used her as leverage." "She uses what is available," she replied. Her voice was flat, not cold, but factual, the voice of someone who stated a thing she has studied. "Do you know Helena?" Samuel asked. Zara did not answer right away. She looked at the far wall of the compound. "I know what Helena needs from this arrangement, and it is not a daughter-in-law." Samuel's jaw tightened. "She sold me." "She attempted to, but the people she is indebted to do not know what I actually am." The words landed strangely. "What do you actually mean?" Zara asked. Zara looked at him for a long moment. "I mean," she said quietly, "that the story they told about me, the Madwoman, the unstable woman, the one to be pitied or feared, was useful to me once, and it has become useful to others for different reasons." "What story was true?" Samuel asked. Zara stood. "You will never hear one of those true." She walked back toward the building. At the door, she paused. "Your drawings are good. You should not stop." She went inside. Samuel sat alone in the yard for a long time after that, the notebook open on his knee, staring at nothing. Over the following 2 weeks, the compound shifted. Not dramatically, not in the way of movie revelations with loud music and sudden confessions. It shifted in the way real things shift, slowly, quietly, with small moments stacking on top of each other until the picture underneath could no longer be hidden. Samuel began to notice things. People came to the compound, not the rough men who had been there when Helena made the arrangement. Different people. A woman in a tailored suit who arrived early in the morning and left within 40 minutes. A man with a laptop bag who sat with Zara for 2 hours in the back room and left with a signed folder under his arm. Phone calls that Zara took outside, speaking in a low, clear voice, making decisions in a tone that left no room for debate. One evening, Samuel was repairing a broken hinge on the courtyard gate, something he had noticed was loose and fixed out of habit.
when Zara appeared beside him. "You do not need to do that," she said. "I know, but it is loose. Someone should fix it." Zara watched him work for a moment. "Helena called this morning," she said. Samuel's hand stilled briefly. "What did she want?" "To confirm that things are proceeding as she expects," Zara said. Samuel tightened the hinge. "Are they?" "No," Zara said simply. Samuel looked at her. There was something in her face then, not quite a smile, more like the quiet expression of someone who has been waiting a long time for a clock to reach a certain hour and can hear it getting close. "What are you going to do?" Samuel asked. Zara looked at the fixed gate. "The same thing you just did," she said. "Find what is broken and correct it." She went back inside. That night, Samuel sat at the small desk in his room and opened his notebook to a clean page. He sat for a while without drawing. Then, slowly, he began to sketch not a building, but a map, a layout of everything he had observed in the compound: the rooms, the locked doors, the pattern of visitors, the timing of the calls. He did not know yet what it all meant, but Samuel O'Coffer was his father's son, and David O'Coffer always taught him, when you cannot understand a situation, map it, draw what you can see. The invisible parts will reveal themselves eventually.
It was Amara who cracked things open. 3 weeks after the marriage, Helena arrived at the compound without warning. She swept in through the courtyard gate with the practiced authority of someone who does not expect to be refused. And she was not alone. A man in a dark jacket walked behind her, one of the same men from the first night, with the calculating eyes and the contained impatience. Samuel was in the yard. He stood when he saw her coming. Helena smiled. "You look well," she said. Her eyes moved around the compound, taking note, cataloging. "Why are you here?" Samuel asked. "To check on my family," she said, in the warm, reasonable voice she used for public occasions. The man behind her was looking at the doors of the back building. Samuel stepped deliberately into the middle of the courtyard, blocking the direct path. "She is not here," Samuel said. Helena's smile did not move. "I did not ask." "I know, I'm telling you." A long moment passed between them. Behind Helena, the man's eyes narrowed slightly. Then the back door opened, and Zara stepped out. She looked at Helena, then at the man behind her. Her expression did not change. "Mrs. Helena, you are welcome to sit in the courtyard. You are not welcome inside." Helena laughed lightly. "Surely, you are not welcome inside," Zara repeated. The man behind Helena took half a step forward. And then something remarkable happened. Without raising her voice, without changing her expression, Zara said 2 words, a name and a number, that meant nothing to Samuel. But they meant everything to the man behind Helena. He stopped. His jaw tightened. He looked at Zara with different eyes, not the calculating eyes of a man arriving in a negotiation, but the careful eyes of a man who just realized he walked into a place he did not expect. Helena turned and looked at him. "What is it?" He said nothing, but he took a step back. Helena turned back to Zara, and for the very first time in all of Samuel's experience of Helena, he saw something appear in her face that he had never seen there before. Not anger, not calculation, fear. "We will speak soon," Helena said. Her voice was still smooth, but it was thinner now, like cloth pulled too tight. "We will," Zara agreed. Helena and the man behind her left. The gate closed. Samuel turned to Zara. "What just happened?" Zara looked at the gate for a moment. Then she turned and walked back inside. "Come in. I will explain some of it." Samuel followed her into the back room, the room that was always locked when anyone else was in the compound.
When she opened the door, he understood why. 3 screens, organized documents, a wall calendar with dates circled in red, 2 phones charging, a laptop connected to an external drive, everything arranged with the precise, purposeful order of someone who was working towards something specific. Zara sat down at the main desk. She gestured to the chair across from her. Samuel sat. "How much do you know about Mensa Holdings?" Samuel frowned. "The investment company? I know the name. I know they are large. Do you know who runs it?" "No, I have never read much about it." Zara was quiet for a moment. "My grandfather founded it. My father grew it. When he died, it passed to me." She looked at Samuel steadily. "I am the CEO of Mensa Holdings Group. We operate across 14 countries. Our portfolio includes infrastructure, healthcare, logistics, and digital systems." Samuel stared at her. The silence in the room was complete. "The woman Helena sold me to is a CEO. Trillionaire, technically, by consolidated group valuation." She said it without pride, without drama, the way someone states a number at a meeting. Samuel felt the entire structure of the past month shift and rearrange itself in his mind. "The Madwoman story," Samuel said. "Useful. For a period, I needed to be underestimated. There were hostile acquisition attempts, board members trying to force me out. A public image of instability was protection. People do not launch aggressive legal campaigns against someone they have already dismissed." "And Helena?" Zara's eyes were steady. "Helena is indebted to people who believe this marriage gives them access to my household. They hope proximity to me will provide intelligence, leverage, a way inside something they have been trying to reach for 3 years." Samuel pressed his hands against the desk, thinking, "You knew all of this when you agreed to the marriage?" "Yes." "Then why did you agree?" Zara looked at him directly. "Because I needed something Helena could not see. I needed a witness inside her circle, someone Helena had overlooked, someone who knew her patterns in her people." She paused. "And because you were being used without consent, and I could not correct Helena without a reason to be near her." Samuel looked at his hands, thinking, "You protected me." "I gave you a reason to be somewhere safer than where she had you. It's not the same thing." Samuel looked up. "What happens now?" Zara turned toward the screen. "Now," she said, "we finish what was started. Helena's creditors get their answer, the people using her get identified, and you get to decide what you actually want to do with your life." Samuel sat in silence for a long moment. Then, "I want to design that health center." Zara looked at him. Something in her face shifted, very slightly, not dramatic, but real. "I know a site, in a neighborhood that has needed one for 11 years.
The gathering was held in a private venue on the upper floor of a building that looked from the outside like nothing special. Inside, it was the kind of room that communicated money through restraint. Clean surfaces, good lighting, careful arrangements. Helena was already there when Samuel and Zara arrived. She was moving between clusters of people, laughing at the right moments, touching people's arms at precisely calibrated intervals. This was the Helena that neighbors admired, the Helena who made grief look like dignity and manipulation look like love. She spotted Samuel and Zara immediately. Her eyes moved from Samuel to Zara, assessing. Then she smiled and came toward them. "You look wonderful," she said to Zara. The words were warm. The eyes behind them were calculating. "Thank you for the invitation," Zara replied. Helena began making introductions. A man from the property network, a woman from the lending group, another man whose role was never clearly stated, but who stood near the most important people in the room. Names that meant something to certain people, names that would appear in documents soon. Samuel stayed close. He watched. He remembered. He was his father's son. The meeting that Helena believed was a presentation of her delivery was in fact the closing of a different door entirely. 40 minutes into the evening, 4 things happened in rapid, quiet succession. The suited woman from Zara's compound entered the room through a side door. She was accompanied by 2 investigators who moved with the particular, unhurried precision of people who know they will not be stopped. The man, whose role was never stated, looked at Zara, and his face became very still. Helena, mid-sentence with a group near the window, turned and saw the investigators. Her social smile froze on her face, and Zara walked to the center of the room and spoke, not loudly, not dramatically, but clearly enough for everyone present to hear. "My name is Zara Mensa. I am the CEO and majority shareholder of Mensa Holdings Group. I have been present in this room tonight as a witness and a principal in a fraud investigation spanning 6 years. What has been gathered here will be shared with the relevant authorities." She paused. "Anyone who wishes to cooperate voluntarily is advised to do so now. The documentation is complete either way." The room did not erupt. It did not collapse into chaos. It went very, very quiet. One man put his glass down on a table and did not pick it up again. Helena turned slowly toward Samuel. Her face had changed entirely, the performance stripped away, leaving something underneath that was harder to look at. Not guilt, not shame, just the naked face of someone whose plan has ended. "You," she said quietly. Samuel met her eyes. "I told you I would endure with my dignity intact. I kept that promise." Helena looked at Zara. Her voice shook slightly. "You used him?" "I protected him after you sold him." The investigators moved forward. Helena was not arrested that evening, but she was interviewed, formally, with the documentation present, and the council member who had arrived expecting a pleasant social evening left instead in the back of a vehicle with a serious face. The man whose role was never stated was gone before anyone looked for him. Samuel and Zara drove home in silence. After a while, Samuel said, "You could have done that without me." Zara looked at the road ahead. "Technically, but I was the only honest person in Helena's circle, and the investigation needed a witness who had seen everything from the inside, someone Helena trusted enough to bring into her arrangements. You were the most important part." Samuel sat with that for a moment. "You should have told me," he said. "I know," Zara said. "I was afraid." "Of what?" "That if you knew the full picture, you would leave, and that I would lose the only person in a long time who looked at me and saw a person, not a position." The car moved through quiet streets. "I saw someone holding herself together," Samuel said, "the very first night." Zara was quiet. "That is enough to be seen," she said finally, very softly. The city moved quickly when power shifted. By the following morning, the investigation was public. Not all of it, not the full scope, but enough. The council member's name appeared in reports. The property network was named. The lending group's operations were flagged for audit. Helena Okafor did not go home after being interviewed. She retained a lawyer and spent 3 days in a state of managed crisis, calling in favors, offering partial information, trying to trade what she knew for protection. It did not work the way she hoped. The documentation Zara's team had assembled was too complete: the bank trails, the dates, the signed agreements that connected Helena to the network explicitly, the forged permissions, the letters written in David Okafor's name after David Okafor was dead. Samuel attended one session of the formal proceedings. He sat in the back and listened as the truth he had lived was given language, numbers, dates, testimony. The slow, thorough vocabulary of accountability. He did not feel triumphant. He felt the particular exhaustion of someone who has been carrying something heavy for a long time and has finally been allowed to put it down. Amara came to live with Samuel at the compound during the proceedings. She arrived with her school bag and a calm face that was working very hard not to be afraid. "Is Helena coming back?" she asked on the first night. Samuel sat beside her. "No," he said. Amara thought about this. "Are we safe here?" "Yes," he said. She nodded, straightened slightly. When she went to sleep, Samuel stood in the hallway for a long time. Normal felt so important. Part 11. What the city could not erase. Helena was found guilty. Not dramatically, not with speeches. The verdict was thorough and precise. Fraud, coercion, forgery, abuse of guardianship, conspiracy to misuse estate assets. She was sentenced, stripped of the property and assets she had accumulated through the manipulation of David O'Coffer's estate. The house Samuel had grown up in was seized. The proceeds were redirected, partly to restitution, partly to a fund for families who had been subject to similar schemes in the same network over the past 6 years. 3 other families received letters. 3 other sets of documents were returned to the people they belonged to. Justice did not arrive loudly. It arrived thoroughly, and then it locked the door. Part 12. The Life That Opened. Samuel's inheritance was returned in stages. It was not large. By the standards of the world he now moved in, it was modest. But it was real. The actual accumulation of what his father had worked for, taken back through proper process and returned to the person it was intended to reach. Samuel did not rush. He opened an account for Amara's education first, covered the years ahead in full so that no one would ever use that door against either of them again. Then he paid off the debts Helena had attached to his name through the arrangement. Then he did something small, deliberate, and deeply important. He rented a space. It was a long room with good light and a concrete floor, in a neighborhood with no community health center, no proper school, no building that had been designed with care. He set up a drafting table. He contacted a former professor. He submitted an application. He started. In the evenings, sometimes Zara appeared in the doorway of the space, not to check on him, not to direct him, just to see. She always brought 2 cups of tea. One evening she looked at the latest designs spread across the drafting table. A health center, open plan, full natural light, space for community meetings in the evening, a small garden in the center that would also serve as a cooling system. "It is better than the first version," she said. "I had more time to think," he replied. She set 1 cup down beside him. "I owe you something." Samuel looked up. "An honest conversation before anything else, about what I hid, about using the situation to my advantage, about the cost to you of decisions I made without your consent." Samuel was quiet for a moment. "You shielded me when it counted, and I placed you in a position of risk without full information. Both things are true. I need you to know that." Samuel looked at the design on the table. "I forgive you," he said. Zara exhaled slowly. "But forgiveness is not in agreement that nothing happened. It is just the beginning of something honest." She looked at him. "Then let us be honest." He picked up his pencil. "We already are."
The city moved on to other headlines, other stories, other crises and revelations. But some changes are quieter than headlines, and they last longer. Mensa Holdings Group implemented new internal policies, transparent financial auditing, legal aid partnerships, a whistleblower protection program that had been in development since before the investigation concluded. Zara kept her promise. She did not use Samuel as a symbol or a shield or a story. she let his work remain his. The health center broke ground 7 months after Samuel submitted the design. On the day of the groundbreaking, Samuel stood in the open space where the building would rise. The community had turned out in numbers that surprised him. Children, elderly people who had been traveling 3 hours to reach the nearest clinic for years. A woman who told her daughter had been born in a taxi because there was nowhere closer to go. Samuel looked at the ground that would become something. His father had once told him, the buildings that matter most are the ones that make ordinary people feel that their lives were worth building for. He finally understood what that meant. He walked home that evening through streets he now knew by name, past faces he recognized, under a sky that had turned the particular color of late afternoon that his father had always called the good hour. Amara was waiting at the compound gate. She launched herself at him the moment she saw him coming. "I heard it was good," she said. "It was," he replied. Zara was in the kitchen when they came inside, cooking something that smelled like a meal that required actual attention. She looked up when Samuel entered. "Good day?" she asked. "Yes," he said. She nodded and turned back to the stove. Amara began telling Zara about her school project in rapid, overlapping sentences. Zara listened and responded with genuine interest, asking follow-up questions that showed she had been paying attention to all the previous updates. Samuel stood in the doorway of his own kitchen and watched. He had not been saved by a trillionaire. He had not been rescued by power or wealth or a dramatic reveal that fixed everything in a single moment. He had been seen, told the truth, given the chance to choose. And he had chosen. He thought about the iron gate that had closed behind him on that first night, the cold sound of it, the document at his feet, the bag spilled on the concrete. That gate felt like 100 years ago. He thought about all the people who still live behind gates like that, people whose names no one called when documents were signed, people whose silence was treated as consent, people who had been told that endurance was the same as acceptance. It was not. Endurance is waiting. Choosing is living. He went to help with dinner.
Samuel Okafor's story is not a story about marrying into wealth or about being saved by someone powerful. It is a story about what happens when a person who has been reduced to a transaction refuses, quietly, steadily, persistently, to believe that is all they are. For years, Samuel survived by making himself small. He obeyed, he waited, he absorbed cruelty and called it family loyalty. He swallowed his dreams and told himself it was patience. Many people live this way. They are told that loyalty means silence, that family means sacrifice, specifically their sacrifice, that the right thing to do is to wait and endure and not cause problems. But real strength is not the ability to absorb pain without breaking. Real strength is the decision to stop accepting pain as the price of belonging. This story also asks us to look carefully at Zara Menza. She was brilliant, powerful, and capable, and she still made choices that hurt someone else. She hid information that was not hers to withhold. She made decisions for Samuel that were Samuel's to make. Power does not automatically make us right. Capability does not automatically make us honest. Even people with good intentions can cause harm when they treat others as pieces in a plan rather than full human beings who deserve the truth. Healing in this story did not begin with Zara's revelation or Helena's arrest. It began in the moment Samuel and Zara sat across from each other and decided to be honest, without strategy, without protection, without calculation. That is the most radical thing two people can do. Not fall in love dramatically, not fight back dramatically, but sit down, tell the truth, and choose each other freely. Helena Okafor is also a lesson, not because she was a monster, but because she was ordinary. She did not shout,
She did not use violence. She used systems. She used paperwork. She used the polite language of family obligation and financial necessity. She used the fact that no one asks too many questions about what happens inside a household where a woman is grieving. This is how harm most often operates, quietly, legally, in familiar rooms. The people who are most endangered are rarely the ones who are in obvious danger. They are the ones who have been made to believe that what is happening to them is normal. It is not. If Samuel's story speaks to you, if any part of it sits in a place inside you that you recognize, ask yourself this: where have you been told that your silence is loyalty? Whose comfort has been protected by your pain? What gate has been closed behind you that you have not yet named out loud? Your story matters. You do not have to trade yourself to belong anywhere. And the truth, however long it takes to arrive, does not change based on how long it has been delayed. If this story moved you, leave a comment and tell us where you were watching from and what part stayed with you. If you believe stories about truth, justice, and the quiet dignity of ordinary people deserve to be told, subscribe to the channel. Stay with us. There are many more voices waiting to be heard.